Alright, so to get started with this project, we picked up our white oak rough sawn 4/4 inch lumber from our local woodcraft. It needs to be milled. That means we need to put it on our joiner, our thickness planer, and finish it off on the table saw before we can start working with it. The final dimensions would be 3/4 of an inch thick. Now, my exact dimensions that I went with the wood was 34 inches tall, 34 7/8 inch long, and it was 14 inch deep. Now, going back onto the wood itself, if you don't want to spend the time with the milling process, you're more than welcome to buy an alternative option, kind of like finished panel glued up pine that they sell at your local hardware store. I don't know if you can find any other material other than pine, so that's just something you have to be okay with. So we got the sides done, the top done, and then the drawers going to be the middle. We haven't started the drawers. Now, you see those offcuts right there? The boards are about 8 feet long, so we got about maybe 20-ish inches left there. So what I'm going to do is actually use them for the support. If you could see right there, I got the middle support and the bottom of the drawer. Now, we don't necessarily need them, but it's kind of nice to prevent any kind of sway back and forth. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mill them up, make them nice and pretty, and use that as our supports for the drawers. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't know. Okay, bye, let's go. Now, on the off chances you did want to pursue the rough sawn lumber approach, once the milling work is done, I like to do the panel glue up. And to do so, I use the Tybond 2 wood glue paired up with these pipe clamps. Once it's dry overnight, the next day I use my Festool Rotec sander and I set it to the rotary mode, which essentially turns it into an angle grinder, but with good dust collection. And I start flattening out all the joints that the wood glue is squeezing out from. Now, for the outside joints of the table, it's going to be 45-degree miter joints. There's a couple ways you can achieve that. I'm using a track saw, set the bevel to 45 degrees, and cut it this way. It works well, specifically if you have clamps underneath the workpiece that connect to your track saw. If you do not own one, don't worry about it. You can use a skill saw with a trim piece clamped down, or the best approach is if you were to build your own independent table saw sled set to 45 degrees and have somebody else hold the end on the side and then cut it across. To me, I feel like you get the best finish this way. The entire project is being held together with Festool dominoes, and what dominoes are, they're basically a crossbreed between dowels and mortise and tenon joinery. It allows for you to kind of speed up the process through this machine. Every joint has a mortise and tenon going through it. As long as you align things appropriately, you shouldn't have a problem piecing and puzzling everything together. Now, my friend Jen Woodhouse, she's got an incredible woodworking blog called House of Wood. I'll put a link down in the description below. Me and her collaborated on this project, and she was nice enough to create awesome plans for you to be able to follow and build this tutorial yourself. I'm not gonna lie, the hardest part about this project was actually my joining method using the Festool dominoes. Mostly because since you've already pre-drilled these tenons and you have these mortises, you can't just plug and play any piece you want at whatever order. Each piece has to depend on the previous piece to go together as a puzzle piece. I know that's kind of confusing, but I hope that makes sense. I think if I was to ever redo this project, it would have probably been assembling everything together with wood glue, clamp it together with clamps, and then drill and drive a dowel right through it, holding the pieces together. As far as the drawer boxes themselves, I made them out of two different materials, a 1/4 inch oak ply for the bottoms and then a 1/2 inch oak ply for the sides. I did it to keep it light and not too heavy. As far as the dimensions, the bottoms, the 1/4 inch oak ply was 12 1/8 by 14 1/2, and then the sides were 3 3/4 inches tall, and the dimensions for the front and backs were 14 1/4, and the sides were 12 3/4. Again, these are 1/2 inch material for the sides. Don't worry about memorizing these numbers. They'll be on Jen's plans. They'll make it nice and easy for you. As far as assembling them, I created a rabbet cut that was probably maybe a 1/4 inch off the bottoms of the side drawers themselves, and probably a cut that was 1/4 inch wide and 3/8 inch deep. That allowed for the 1/4 inch panel to sit through, assemble everything with wood glue, and finish together with brad nails. Alright, the drawer faces, they're probably my favorite part. I made them out of a poplar, mostly because it's a hardwood and it paints very well without having too many knots. The dimensions are 6 inches tall and 33 1/8 inch long. I basically figured out a couple of fun geometric patterns and used a straight edge to kind of trace them down. And then I used my track saw with a blade, and I created a cut that was probably 3/8 of an inch deep. And I just kind of had fun creating all these different patterns. The most important part is actually hand sanding in all the little grooves that you already cut with your track saw. Once that's done, you have to seal everything. That way the paint doesn't start absorbing everything into the wood like a sponge. To do so, you can either A, pick up a wood primer, or B, what I like to do is use a shellac. A shellac is a water-based product. You can spray and seal it, and now you've created a smooth surface for the paint to stick to it.
For the paint, I just used a lacquer paint from my local hardware store. It was a white that I liked. Once everything was done, I laid up as many layers as I could to make it feel full, colored in, and most importantly, not gunked up. And lastly, for the finish, I went with a Danish oil, mostly because it applies very easily with a rag, just to wipe on and then let it dry. And the nice thing about it, it keeps a nice natural look. Perhaps just darkens the grain just a little bit, but a perfect look for where we're shooting for. For the hardware, we went with 12-inch full extendable ball bearing drawer slides from our local hardware store. Once we got them all installed, it was time to put the drawer faces on. Now the drawer faces, very important to keep them nice and straight because the pattern continues from one face to the other. To do so, I found it best to use a hot glue gun, secure the drawer faces on with the hot glue gun, let them dry, gently pull the drawer out, and then drive screws from the back side of the drawer into the drawer faces.
Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Like, comment, and share it with your friends if you choose to do so. If you're brand new, consider subscribing to this channel. We put out a video every single week, and we don't want you to miss a single one. Big thank you for my friend Jen, who partnered with me on this project. Her website will be down in the description below. Check out the plans to this build or any other build that Jen has to offer. Follow me on social media. Tune in out this week. We'll see you guys next week. See ya. Bye.